get some more on what to expect at the Open. We're joined now by Stan Shamu from IG in Melbourne. Stan, good to see you there. Yeah, just firstly to the greenback, obviously in focus ahead of the FOMC meeting. What do you think? Can we expect a reversal this week in the greenback?
Yeah, well, it seems like it is a big possibility. Of course, the US dollar has remained on the back foot, just on expectations that perhaps that quantitative easing tapering won't start in September. Of course, that Hilsenrath article last week really did stir the pot. And it does look like some investors are now getting a bit more skeptical about the fact that tapering will start in September. Of course, we've got the FOMC meeting this week. We don't really expect any big surprises from the Fed. We feel that they have really put themselves as clear as possible out there in the market. And they have really said, look, it just depends on exactly how the data is tracking, and nothing should change from that perspective. While Hilsenrath suggested that they might lower some of their thresholds for unemployment and inflation, I think the overall feel will be that as long as data is ticking along well, then we can expect tapering to happen at some stage soon. Of course, we actually feel that the Friday non-farm payrolls data carries a bit more weight, where we're expecting the unemployment rate to be down to 7.5%, just mildly from 7.6%. And any positive surprises on the jobs added front should really be supportive of the US dollar and potentially for a US dollar reversal across the board. And this would in turn weigh on most of the risk space.
Well, in terms of all of that then, with regards to what you've just been saying there about the Fed, then how do you expect the Aussie to hold up this week?
Yeah, the Aussie is just looking like it's being capped by that 93 level at the moment. Of course, it does look like it's just being pushed higher by the US dollar weakness, and as well some slight optimism on the China front. At the same time, we've got RBA Governor Glenn Stevens coming out tomorrow, and I think some of the bulls will be spooked by the fact that he could come out and talk down the Aussie dollar once again. At the same time, we've got a very even split amongst analysts about next week's rate decision between no cut and the 25 basis point cut. So it really does look like we're entering uncharted territory for the Aussie dollar. We will continue to focus on that 93 level, and any push higher through that level should really support the Aussie dollar in the short term. But of course, if the US dollar does come back to life in the back end of the week, then we might see it act as resistance, and we might see the Aussie dollar drop back a little bit heading into the weekend.
And looking at the greenback yen pairing there, I mean, we saw the Nikkei drop 3% on Friday. How do you expect the Nikkei then to track over the coming week then, given that?
Yeah, it's a crucial week for Japan. Of course, on Friday we had a pretty sharp drop in the Nikkei, just mainly on the back of that CPI print. Whilst the headline number was good, it did look like it had dug Japan out of that deflationary phase. But of course, just digging deeper into the number, it looked like a sharp rise in energy prices of around 6.9% really did push the inflation reading higher. Some of the normal consumer goods didn't actually show a sharp rise in prices. So that really did see Japan drop back. And at the same time, I think a lot of investors just felt that perhaps without an addition to stimulus and with inflation not looking as good as the headline number suggested, then it was an excuse to sell out of the Nikkei, particularly ahead of a key start to the earnings season as well. So with Kuroda on the wires today, we feel he might actually come out and make some comments regarding that CPI number and of course about stimulus going forward. So that might cause a bit of volatility for Japan today. At the same time, we've got the likes of Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Sony and Panasonic starting to report earnings this week as well. So these are big manufacturers and exporters, and will give a good indication of exactly how Japan's economy is tracking. And this should be quite a volatile week for Japan as a result. So far, we are calling the Nikkei down about 1.5%, just slightly below 14,000. So it should be an interesting start for the week, and we expect Japan to be the main source of volatility for the region this week.
Okay, what's your call then? The opening call for the ASX 200?
Given that slight rise in the US market on Friday, we're actually calling the Australian market a touch higher, up 0.3%. So it should be quite a fairly good start for the Australian market. Of course, we've seen risk currencies get off to a fairly good start, particularly the Aussie dollar, which is pushing back into that 93 level today. So that's quite supportive of sentiment to start off the week. We'll have to see how the futures will be tracking heading into the open. And of course, it does look like the iron ore miners will be leading the way as well again. We're looking at a fairly good gain for BHP at the open. Iron ore was up about 0.3% as well, so that iron ore space should be pretty good for the day. But copper names might come under pressure. We had a pretty sharp drop in copper. At the same time, of course, the likes of Panos had a good day on Friday, so they might give back some of those gains. Oz Minerals might continue its short-term weakness. And of course, we've got Whitehaven Coal coming out with its fourth quarter production report today. And of course, coal has been one of the most beaten up sectors out there, so it should be an interesting report to look out for. But apart from that, not too much on the company news front, so we'll have to just be patient and wait and see how Japan plays out and whether or not it can give the region a pretty good lead, particularly with its retail sales number due out today with a 1.7% rise expected.
All right, Stan, as always, thank you so much for that.
Cheers, Brady.
Just some breaking news too coming in with regards to Rio's North Parks project, the gold and copper mine there. Rio in a statement just saying that it's reached a binding agreement for the sale of its 80